If you're like me and you're like a lot of other people, you know very little about the topic of cremation. Yes, that's what we're talking about today, cremation. I'm going to be cremated. It's in my will, but I don't really know very much about it. I don't think my family knows very much about it. And I think it would be a good conversation to learn all those frequently asked questions about cremation. So if you want to know more about that topic, stay tuned. Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to SCAN FYI. So yes, we have an interesting topic for today and something that we've not talked about before, but I believe that it is a very important topic. First, I do want to say that our segment today is sponsored by Jersey Memorial Group, who happens to be our guest. So Michael Grandi, who is my guest today. So good morning.
Good morning.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you and what is your role at Jersey Memorial Group?
I've been a funeral director by trade for the past 25 years. With our company had grown into a management position, and now I am vice president of operations for our funeral homes, which are family owned. And we currently have 12 locations in New Jersey and 2 in Pennsylvania. And what makes us a little bit unique is we do own our own crematory, which is rare in New Jersey because you're not allowed to own them. So because we have one in Pennsylvania, gives us the ability to service families on a different level, and we're proud of that.
So we've never had this conversation before, but you know what? We've never had someone like you, Michael, who is obviously in a unique position to discuss the topic of cremation. And I know that it's a lot more common now than it ever used to be. Is that so?
Cremation we're seeing today is outnumbering burial. In certain regions, even in New Jersey, we're seeing cremation at about 50%, to 55% in certain areas. So it is definitely becoming the popular or more popular form of disposition for many folks here in New Jersey.
I never thought that I would. Wow, it's even more popular than I thought.
Yes. Yep.
Well, when I first told my family, again, it's in my will, I'm going to be cremated, they were quite appalled. And then I explained my reasoning, and I feel like they came to understand it, obviously a lot better. But I think, even if you're going to be cremated and it's in your will, your family should have an understanding it's more than just I'm being cremated. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's really just get into it. My very first question is, what are the coffin requirements, if there are any requirements, when you're going to be cremated?
So with cremation, there is no casket requirement whatsoever. If you're choosing the type of cremation, which we call limited or simple cremation, we're using minimum containers that are set by the state of New Jersey in order to cremate. So they're very economical. They're good for the environment. Obviously, they burn clean. They don't have a lot of metal or movable parts like traditional caskets would have.
Right.
Even in cases where families are choosing traditional services, where they're going to have an open casket visitation or have their remains in the church for some sort of ceremony, a casket could be rented from the funeral home. And it's not a casket that we have a family use and then we take their loved one out. They're really designed, and they're called ceremonial units, where it's a nice casket on the outside, the inside is empty, and we actually put the cremation container inside. We build an interior. That's how the decedent is viewed, and then that container could be removed.
All right, so you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, if you want to look at it that way. But I will say one thing right off the bat. one reason I'm sure cremation is a lot less expensive than a traditional burial would probably have to do with the casket.
That's one of the, the factors is you don't have to purchase a casket. The second factor is really the cost of burial. Um, Opening and closing a grave, as well as vault requirements in cemeteries. So usually on average there is about a $4,000 to $5,000 difference between burial and cremation, simply because the casket, opening or digging a grave,
Right.
which is costly, and then the concrete burial vault that most cemeteries require now. So those are all added costs that don't exist when you're choosing cremation.
So when people would say, "Oh, I want to be cremated and, sprinkle my ashes in the Grand Canyon," is that even a legal thing?
So the requirements, or what they suggest, is, well, first off, there's no risk to public health with cremated remains whatsoever,
Okay,
whether
good to know.
ocean or on land. Typically, if you are going to be scattering cremated remains on any type of private property that's not your own, you should get permission from that source. So if you want to go on a golf course, permission would be granted by the golf course for you to go out, and do that. If it was going to be at, a ballpark or a favorite stadium of the decedent, the same thing. Permission, should be granted. Now, again, once cremation takes place and we return the cremated remains to the family, we really do not have oversight over that process. More
Right.
so when it's, out on the ocean, or scattering we've been involved with. So again, what people decide to do is up to them. I've been told that if you've been to any ballpark or stadium, that probably as you're walking outside, there's probably some form of cremated remains out there, because you know,
Floating in the air.
yeah, or on the ground or whatnot. But those are the things that provide comfort, to people, and honoring their wishes sometimes, or their favorite places, or their favorite vacation spot. And it's not unusual for people to travel with cremated remains on a plane somewhere else back to their native country, and scatter them.
So I think the most important thing, my takeaway from what you said, is that there is no health harm to anyone from the ashes or the remains. Okay, that's good to know.
Correct. And even out on the ocean, like the EPA
Mhm.
recommends, 3 miles, 3 nautical miles at sea when you're scattering. Now, I was a boater years ago, and I would bring families out as a courtesy to do that on my own boat, and I would follow the rules, because I'm a funeral professional. If you hire a captain, they're going to document the coordinates. They're going to be 3 miles out. Whether somebody goes out on their boat, or they even research or know the rules, or even ask a funeral director, they may not be privy to that information. So it's not like they're, breaking this terrible law, or doing something that's, really, really unethical, per se.
So I feel like one of the reasons cremation is maybe gaining in popularity is that there's some environmental concerns, and Earth only has so much space. And so, Michael, what are some of the options that people might have for their ashes, like environmentally friendly, or just something unusual that you might consider doing?
I mean, now, and even behind me, you see some urns on display here in one of our offices and selection rooms. There's a lot of eco-friendly. I mean, now they make, sea and salt urns that dissolve in the water. So it gives you a more dignified way to place ashes in the ocean, rather than just, emptying a box.
Okay.
They will float in the water for 10 to 15 minutes and dissolve and distribute the ashes in the ocean. There are bio urns, that you can put the cremated remains in. They can be planted, and it will grow a
Really?
tree. Yeah, it will grow a tree. And there's also, eco-friendly biodegradable earth urns if you just want the remains to go back to the earth, but place them in the ground in some sort of container. It will break down and distribute the remains in the earth, without growing a tree. Obviously, that's an option as well. So there are several options for families that do want to do something like that, and do it in a real dignified manner or ceremonious for that matter as well.
And this is exactly the kind of thing that my guess is that if you're like me out there, you don't know all these things. So if you want to be cremated and you want to do something, very specific with your remains, you need to put that info in your will, or let your family know, or somehow let people know, because I think a lot of people just have no idea this is available.
Yeah, and it's why we encourage pre-arranging, or sitting down with your funeral director, even to document your wishes. It's a very popular thing today. We meet several families per week, and it's important because we don't have these conversations with our loved ones when we get together with them. We don't make it a strong
No,
point.
we
I mean, let's
don't.
face it, when you get together for the holidays or special events, when you see your children, you're not saying, oh, by the way, this is, what I someday want with my cremated remains. So it's a sensitive subject. It's not a talk that we often have. Some folks will document information in their will. But again, I always say, even if it's in a will, go see your funeral director, because, if someone doesn't know where to locate a will, or they can't get access to it right away, we would still need to move forward. So having it in more than one place, or with more than one individual, is always best, because those are very sensitive decisions. And most of the time, everybody wants to be able to honor, the wishes of that individual.
So, all right. Now, you were saying that in New Jersey, obviously, if you're going to be cremated, this is going to be in a very specific location, because every funeral home does not have a place to cremate.
So
I don't even know if I'm saying the words right.
Crematories exist in New Jersey. They're third-party crematories. So I'll give you an example. When a decedent is brought into the care of the funeral home, they will conduct services, or if there's no services, the funeral director transports the decedent and drops them at a crematory in their neighborhood or at a cemetery where one is located. The cremation will take place privately under the direction of whomever the staff member or crematory operator is. And then they will go back a day or two later, and they will pick up the cremated remains in the cremation container that's returned. So the licensed funeral director doesn't oversee that process. That's why it was important for us to branch out and try to find a crematory in Pennsylvania to kind of circumvent that, because it's more important for us to know that when a decedent is brought into our care, they never leave the care of my licensed funeral directors. We are certified crematory operators. We oversee that whole entire process from beginning to end until, they're returned to the family members. And we've invested a lot in technology, barcoding, tracking in real time, all these things that we do in the movements of the decedent, in order to know that, we have what we call a 14-point system. So we know every step of the way, what's happening. So it's not that there's anything wrong with a funeral home that doesn't own or operate a crematory. It's just that I didn't get the peace of mind knowing that when I gave the cremated remains back to a family, I could not give them a personal guarantee and say, this is your loved one. I was not there. I put my trust in someone else, and we believe they're doing the right thing because we are trusting them. But we just feel comfortable now that, we can basically take the decedents full circle. And just like when we bury somebody, we're there until a vault is sealed or a mausoleum crypt is sealed. Now with cremation, we see that process through until they're back with the family.
So, first of all, for everyone who watching out there, I hope you're learning a little bit something today. I know I certainly am. And all of Jersey Memorial's contact information, of course, on the screen. And if you want to reach out to Michael and, get more information. So, Michael, would it be reasonable for someone to just even have a consultation with you or someone from your organization to just learn more about their options? Is that something that you would offer?
Oh, absolutely. There's no charge for any kind of prearrangements. In New Jersey, even when families prepay or fund their funerals, there's no professional fees on our end for that. We're just a catalyst. We're not allowed to charge. We're just a catalyst to get the funds where they need to go. And I meet with families personally. We have 3 full-time advanced planning directors that we hired that are licensed funeral directors that only meet with families that are talking about these things without a death occurring, because we want to have people that specialize in this, even though anybody can have that talk. So yes, definitely something we encourage. Information and knowledge is free. It could be a phone conversation. It could be an email with information. We always feel that a better educated consumer is our best, and they could make very well thought out decisions and not make them with haste, and really understand full circle what all those
Right.
options are, even when it comes to having a service prior to cremation.
So I guess even if you're being cremated, you can still opt for having a full-on funeral service. That's no different, correct?
Yeah, I mean, cremation, the misconception of cremation with a consumer is really cremation is just an end result. Cremation is no different than saying, I want to be buried. If you're going to be buried, we know that a hole is going to be dug and remains are going to be placed in the ground. If you choose to be cremated, that just means that the remains are going to be reduced to ash via cremation and heat. That's an end result term. For a lot of our families that, being that we're secular and we serve all faiths, if you know they're religious and they want a church service or they want an open casket viewing, all those things still happen. So you can basically do everything that you would do with a burial, except after the church, instead of going to the cemetery, the decedent would be taken, to the crematory. Now, for the families that don't want to have services with the remains present, there's what we call memorial cremation that's available as well. And that's when the cremation takes place, and then a memorial could be planned. And that could just be a photo in a church. It could be a photo in the funeral home. It could be the remains already in the urn where relatives and friends are gathering around pictures and the urn, reflecting,
Right.
doing eulogies, all those things. So cremation could be very ceremonious. It doesn't have to be this quick process where I pass away and I go from the hospital to the crematory, and there's nothing that's really done to honor the life of that individual, or give folks the opportunity to come and acknowledge a loss, because I may be the survivor. I may have lost a parent. I have people that care about me that may want to come out to acknowledge the fact that I have a loss. They may not have known my loved one that passed away. So that's where a memorial gives the family that sense of closure, knowing that they could do that and they have that as an option.
So I think that what we're learning here today, because again, we're SCAN FYI and, SCAN, we're all about public education and empowering you. Knowledge is power. Even on a subject such as this, it's important to know, because you never want to make decisions in an emergency situation. And even though maybe you're watching now and you're thinking, well, this doesn't really affect me. Well, you never know. Maybe someone else in your family wants to be cremated and they don't even know how to talk to you about it, or you don't know what your options are. Well, the good news is that we have someone like Michael that you can call, reach out to, who will explain it to you absolutely, and you'll know exactly what you need to do.
And the other thing I want to make mention too is we've met a lot of SCAN members, through our involvement and support of the wonderful organization. If there is any families that do have plans in place already or prearrangements, as a SCAN member, we would come to the home. We would look at the things they already have in place, especially if it was done years ago, just to make sure that there's things that maybe don't need to be updated, or maybe there could be a shortfall, maybe there's something financially. Again, if everything's perfect, it's like, great, keep what you have. It's wonderful. You did the right thing. Everything's perfect. If there's recommendations that we have, we would just make them or make notes for the consumer so they would know.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That's a generous offer for SCAN members. But I think in general, it's always good to have a consultation. Again, you don't want to make decisions in an emergency. You want to know what your options are. I learned a lot today, Michael. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
I appreciate taking the time. Absolutely.
So once again, Jersey Memorial Group, you were our sponsor today. I also want to let people know that Jersey Memorial Group is a SCAN sponsor, and we appreciate that very much.
Well, you're welcome. We're proud to be a part of it and support the wonderful cause.
So remember, if it's important to you, it's important to us. I'm Andrea Tarr. We'll see you next time on SCAN FYI. Bye, everyone, and bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.